Okay, guys, I hear that William Hague is considering throwing his hat in the ring for Oxford Chancellorship. So, with the help of a little bit of publicly available information from public domains and the odd bit of commentary from myself, we'll see what we can have to say about him. So, William Hague. Leadership debate, 1997. Hague became the youngest leader of a major political party in 200 years when he took over the Conservative Party after their defeat by Tony Blair's New Labour in 1997. However, his tenure was marked by internal party divisions and challenges, where he was criticised for barely being able to lay a glove, let alone a blow, on the Blair administration during his time in leadership. Euroscepticism. Hague was on the Eurosceptic side of the debate over Britain's relationship with the European Union. His stance sometimes hindered effective diplomacy and cooperation with EU partners. Whether you are pro or anti-UK membership of the European Union, his influence has undoubtedly contributed, at the very least, to our much maligned trade position with the EU and reputation internationally, while distance from European institutions have led eventually to successive regressions in the UK human rights situation, from removal from UK citizens of statehood to the ultimately ridiculous stances on Rwanda removals. Foreign Office era. As Foreign Secretary 2010 to 2014, some saw an inability to articulate a clear world role and desperate desire to punch above its weight in foreign affairs. Hague faced criticism for the UK's involvement in Iraq and Afghanistan, but at the origin, that criticism could be levelled at every candidate. The fundamental incompetencies and chaotic contributions ascribed to him and described by the military on the ground, with lack of preparation for the instigation of nation building. These levels of dissatisfaction led to the ultimately naive and destructive capitulation in leaving Afghanistan, which reduced me and many of my fellow expert specialists frankly to tears. And then there was Libya, possibly the most poorly thought through British military event in our modern history. It led to civil war between rival factions, the proliferation of arms all across Africa and taken up by rebel and Islamic groups, and the example set from a legitimacy sense encouraged authoritarian, undemocratic, militant and brutish government and entity action and other such like disturbances across Africa and contributed to the massive rise in global insecurity. Lack of prime ministerial success. Despite being leader of the Conservative Party, Hague never became Prime Minister. His inability to secure the top office led to questions about his leadership and strategy. Party modernisation challenges. Hague embarked on a modernisation project within the Conservative Party, but changing entrenched party views proved difficult. The Tories were resistant to reform, making his task challenging yet difficult. Along came Boris, May and Truss. The disintegration of our relationship with Europe, the immiseration of much of the population with austerity and falling incomes, the hostile environment and racial and ethnic discord between people of all backgrounds, from the hostile environment to Rwanda policies and knee-jerk agitation for greater freedoms and a more protracted campaign for better quality of life and living standards. Inexperience. Hague freely admitted that he was inexperienced and not fully ready for the leadership role. His youth and lack of political seasoning posed challenges. Tory infighting. During his leadership, the Conservative Party faced internal divisions, particularly over Europe. These divisions weakened the party's cohesion and effectiveness. Limited impact as Foreign Secretary. Some critics felt that Hague's impact as Foreign Secretary was subdued and subservient. His tenure lacked significant breakthroughs or defining moments. Missed prime ministerial opportunity. Hague's decision to take the leadership gamble early in his career meant he either had to reach the top or explore other avenues. Hence we see him here. While he claims he didn't regret it, the missed opportunity of a premiership remained a point of discussion. Legacy as opposition leader. Hague's legacy as leader of the opposition is mixed. While he faced formidable challenges, his inability to lead the parties to victory left a lasting impression. Hague read philosophy, politics and economics. Luckily I've got that covered too. He was president of the Oxford University Conservative Association, ALCA, but was convicted of electoral malpractice in the election process of his successor. Auke's official historian, David Blair, notes that Hague was actually elected on a platform pledging to clean up Auke, but that this was tarnished by accusation that he misused his position as returning officer to help the maudlin candidate for the presidency, Peter Hague. Hague was playing the classic game of using his powers as president to keep his faction in power, and Hague was duly elected. There were accusations of blatant ballot box stuffing. He also served as president of the Oxford Union, an established route into politics. After Oxford, Hague went on to study for a Master of Business Administration degree at INSEAD. He then worked as a management consultant at McKinsey & Company, where Archie Norman was his mentor. Luckily, I've got all of those areas covered too. But I don't use outdated, formalistic or forced-upon templates to have people follow my advice. I learn from people through reasoning and collaboration. I value the views and goals of others. Hague moved to the Department of Social Security, where he was Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State. The following year, he was promoted as Minister of State in the DSS with responsibility for social security and disabled people. I don't want to upset too many people on this subject, but there are so very many who have asked for me to advocate on this subject on their behalf. Who sees those benefiting from our social covenant defined welfare-enabled safety net as the scum of the earth, or not fit to be deserving of their lives, livelihoods, or even a roof over their heads? What about the physically and mentally incapacitated, who are often forced to live lives of despondency and die deaths of despair based on their needs to play a part in society being met, whether from practical, monetary, employment and social perspectives, or more than likely a combination of these perspectives? How long did it take to instigate universal credit? And how many people were traumatized by the insecurity of waiting for or being rejected by intrusive benefit decision making? Quote, talk about Europe and they call you extreme. Talk about tax and they call you greedy. Talk about crime and they call you reactionary. Talk about immigration and they call you racist. Talk about your nation and they call you little Englanders. This government thinks Britain would be alright if we had a different people. I think Britain would be alright if only we had a different government. He's had his opportunity, he's had his time. We can all form our own judgments as to his contribution to and place in history. But many of my fellow countrymen and international associates have a strong sense of backward steps, both domestically and also of the global context. Quote, he started the fuel protest bandwagon, then the floods bandwagon. Yes, the right honourable gentleman made a very witty, funny speech, but it summed up his leadership. Good jokes, lousy judgment. I'm afraid that in the end, if the right honourable gentleman really aspires to stand at this dispatch box, he will have to get his policies sorted out and his party sorted out and offer a vision for the country's future, not a vision that would take us backwards. Quote, all those honourable members who sit behind the Prime Minister and wonder whether they stand for anything any longer, or whether they defend any point of principle, know who has led them to that sorry state. I stand for liberty. The most important freedoms in academia and hence our university are those of freedom of association and freedom of expression. I will stand forthright behind those principles and lead the fight to preserve them at the front, behind the lines or in the shadows, or on the beaches for that matter. Freedom is what allowed many of us to get to Oxford in the first place, and is what will allow current matriculees and past ones to continue to thrive in environments of achievement and excellence. I achieved reaching the absolute zenith of influence and activities in the world I was able to carve out, so can you, and so can future generations. On the morning of Labour's second consecutive landslide victory at the 2001 general election, Hague stated, we have not been able to persuade a majority, or anything approaching a majority, that we are yet the alternative government that they need. At that election, the Conservative Party gained just one parliamentary seat more than the 1997 general election. Following this defeat, Hague resigned as party leader. Hague thus became only the second 20th century Conservative Party leader not to become Prime Minister after Austen Chamberlain, and the first ever to spend his entire tenure in opposition. Further, on the 15th of February 2006, Hague debuted during David Cameron's paternity leave at Prime Minister's Questions. This appearance gave rise to jokes to the extent of Blair that all three parties that day were being led by stand-ins, with the Liberal Democrats represented by acting leader Sir Menzies Campbell, the Labour Party by the departing Blair, and the Conservatives by Hague. Our university needs a genuinely capable leader, not another stand-in. You are welcome to look into my background. I don't know precisely what you'll find in terms of evidence of my past achievements in leadership, but I'm open about my life when questioned. Hague further said that there will be no downgrading of human rights under this government and no resigning from our commitments to aid and development. He continued saying that indeed, I intend to improve and strengthen our human rights work. It is not in our character as a nation to have a foreign policy without a conscience, and neither is in our interests. I'll just hold my hands up in exasperation, rather than relive the traumas of our shared modern histories. I'll leave that one there. Mixed views on this one, but it's pertinent nonetheless. In August 2012, Hague declared that Julian Assange, the WikiLeaks organisation founder, would not be granted political asylum by the United Kingdom. Hague declared the UK's willingness to extradite Assange to the Swedish authorities who had requested extradition. Secretary of State for Wales, 1995 to 1997. Why, if that was the case, is Wales still seen by some as a relatively deprived area of the country, with poorer NHS outcomes and quality and longevity of life? Why are the history books and sociology studies so distinctly lacking in records of any achievement in this time? In June 2011, Hague said that Britain helped initiate distasteful peace talks with the Taliban in Afghanistan. He told the Sun newspaper that Britain had led the way in persuading US President Barack Obama's administration that negotiation was the best potential solution to the conflict. Hague admitted that any deal might mean accepting distasteful things and could anger military veterans and relatives of the 374 British troops killed in Afghanistan. But the final outcome was neither in the vein of reasonableness or practicality, despite Hague's various claims to that effect. We have also seen the fall of the desires for progress from the Muslim Brotherhood, while spillover of Syrian refugees are saturating Turkey and the wider EU. You have a unique opportunity to vote for a clean skin without a record of incompetence, sleaze or toadyism. Vote for the best. Vote for me. Thank you.